All right, thank you very much. So yes, I'm Fla from the Blockchain Game Alliance. And to tell you a little bit more about the Blockchain Game Alliance, so the BGA, we are this organization counting the biggest, actually not, the biggest number of professionals involved in blockchain gaming. So it counts around 300 companies. Part of the BGA that we have in terms of connection, but also really about blockchain. And we're happy to be continuing. Introducing a little bit the topic we have today, and then go into the introduction of our speakers, which is ownership. Ownership is a very interesting concept, really well known 3 4 years ago when we actually discovered blockchain and how it could be used in a thing. Well, in the media, we release a report every year talking about the benefits and the challenges of our ecosystem. And ownership is always the number one. Ownership is always the number one reason why blockchain in game. And so definitely it's going to be interesting to talk about that today. And on that note, as a side note, just for everyone here in the room, if you didn't fill the survey of these annual reports, please do so. I have the link back there so you can testify, share your insights about the state of industry. But without any further ado, I'll go to welcome our speakers to talk about this wonderful topic. And it's going to be interesting because we have game studios and game infrastructures. But before that, if you can introduce yourself in 1 or 2 minutes, would be perfect.
Sure, excellent. Thank you. So my name is Yves Zaki. So my name is the name that I promote my community. And I've been certified for almost 5 years now, since 2020. So thanks to COVID. And since then, I've been very much interested. I'm a researcher by nature and by career work. So I love to research, and one of the things that recently attracted to research is after researching quite about the top, there's the research stage of it and how they rely on machine systems. It's quite a little, but because of that, it makes me feel really agitated, like experiment and explore what is essential and how it has evolved over time. Okay, thank you.
Hi, nice to meet you everyone. I'm Mihili. I'm CFO of Big Time and Open. So Big Time is I can say one of the leading Web3 game, and also Open is a marketplace we built for not only Big Time but the other partner studios. And I manage not only finance but also payment side in the marketplace, so payment processing and risk management. So being part of my responsibility, but not only that, of course, being in the Western space, you got the more than I would just say the title of the book. So I also work with many partner studios. So we work very closely with our partner studios. We are kind of a differently, overall, we very selective studios, not many. So that's our strategy. Then once they onboarded, then I work very closely with them to make sure the economies and other the marketplace and the six strategies aligned with our marketplace at home. Yeah, nice to meet you all.
Hi, my name is Andy Kringle. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Yon. And the members of the VGA. So thank you so much for inviting us here. Yon is basically decentralized cloud gaming. So we built an infrastructure that enables AAA games to run on a web browser. So effectively, anywhere that you have a video stream, we can run it down. So Telegram, Discord, YouTube, Netflix, you know. And we basically then built a deeper network which reduces the price of GPU from $2 down to 5 cents per session. So that's what we're doing as a business. Me personally, I've been in blockchain for 5 years and started actually out doing an NFT push. So ownership, which then the gaming side is where it comes from. So, very much. Thank you. I'm Mariana Rumestic, CEO of Sura Gaming and Sura Meters. So Sura Gaming is the largest and the greatest Web3 gaming community in South America. We cover all Spanish and Portuguese speaking countries. And what we do basically is help Web3 games use their acquisition, loans, products, and services. We have worked with over 100 games, split in one. And with Sir Avengers, it's the venture studio that is changing the paradigm of Web3 games. We are changing the focus of token-based games for gamer-based games. And also, a board member of the Dutch Himalaya. Thank you very much for having us here. And if you're working in the Web3 game industry and still not with us, you have to rethink it.
Okay, I'll take a note of that.
Don't take it as personal.
So we do, every one of our members are BPs of the VGA team, so basically they are our best business developers. Thanks a lot, Mariano. For the 40-ish minutes we have together to talk about ownership, I think it's going to be important to divide this conversation into two. One would be relying on your experience and your activities for the sake of our topics, ownership, and we will see if it leads us to a more meaningful conversation, confrontation maybe, I don't fight, but you can try to deploy this before. And we will see where we're going with that. But so first, I think it's going to be important to talk about essentially ownership, the concept of ownership in Web3, thanks to Web3, for me, my experience was around this notion. I remember had a very successful collection of NFTs and had the opportunity from the ownership of these digital assets to have a tab with the name of this NFT collection in Decentraland. So this meaningful link between my assets and another world, which was Decentraland, was tied to the ownership of these assets. So, which was really cool, still really cool. And now I'd like you to explain a little bit about how was Decentraland now evolved over the years. How Decentraland evolved over the years.
So the Decentraland has more like a lot, in my opinion, besides the IBS system. I wouldn't say it's just a beginning because the Decentraland started in 2017, the venture market in 2020, and it's late 2020, and it was still long. So when you first started in Decentraland, you will see like browser base, it's very like the quality of the publish is so weak. Now, fast forward 5 years later, you could see that you have a client which a lot of people like to use and because it's much better, right? And they evolve not just on the technology perspective, but also from the ecosystem perspective as well. So essentially what the foundation does is that they engage with the community and advance the play economy. So from ownership to community to artists, they engage this community and then try to promote their creation in Decentraland. So that's one great thing about Decentraland. When you look at like to give that technology for a development of Decentraland is if you look at the game Street Fighter that most of you know what Street Fighter, right? So Street Fighter started in 1997. And the first Street Fighter 1 isn't really that famous until came out Street Fighter 1991. It took them about 4 years. So now, 36 years later, in 2033, it came out with Street Fighter 6. So it took them about 36 years to perfectionize their graphics and quality, right? So what essentially is facing right now is a Street Fighter co-movement where they only started in 2020, now in 2025, it's called with better client, with better content. So what I'm looking for personally is how essentially will evolve more after this, like what they're going to do, how interaction and engagement will be like in 5 years.
And we're going to talk about that, how the perfection of content creation over the years will affect your ability to acquire more and more users and the relationship with the users and the creators. But before that, we're going to have some sort of introduction of big time for those who don't know, but also the concept of ownership based on the vision that big time has in the one.
Yes, okay. So, yeah, in Web3, what does actually ownership means, right? It's a big question. So we can say it's a verifiable, transferable, and also monetizable, controllable gaming assets. And so Bitcoin, as we can see, is a we can witness because we also have our marketplace called and all our gaming assets are traded in the marketplace. And we actually can see players of Bitcoin, they trade their gaming assets. And also not only that, they can also rent it out. Like for example, you don't want to sell them, but you actually have too many of them. Then what you do, you can actually rent them to other players, and they can actually enjoy those assets and also participate in economies level. So we actually have more than $300 billion of attribution volume that is a business. It's very active. And so you can see how people actually enjoy their ownership is your assets now can be rewarded through your inflation and also you can from them. So in our case, we don't actually sell those schemes or like certain NFTs by ourselves, but we let our players get drop off. Once you have them, then players use it within the game or there's too many, then you start selling the marketplaces. With our other players, you don't actually want to you spend too much time collecting all this, but you are just want to use it. They go to the marketplace and use it. And it's not only theory, but you can actually see it from the activities happening in the marketplace. So the true ownership speaks for itself. There's current value that is created out by the studio, but there's enough impact that is amplified on the players.
One interesting thing about big time again, maybe it changed over the past weeks, you tell me that we all know, a lot of us, we are involved in game development, so we know how it is. What is interesting is the ownership of the digital assets of big time was tied up to the ability to create a game as it is one more, which is interesting, so they feel very well involved by the success of the game over the years. Because they have full ownership of the digital assets, giving them the ability to play the game, right?
It's like, yeah, that's a very good summary. Yeah.
That's interesting. Andy, obviously we're gonna start that conversation too young, I'm sure. But it's interesting to also know about your past experience with the projects you have. How would you expect ownership as a what you did before?
Is this in the NFT?
Yes.
Yeah, so well, this was 2022, so everyone was, we weren't doing NFT, we had to go really good partners. And then we're going to go period partnership, and we're trying to do a partnership with the same partnership, but we wanted to build out characters, avatars, which were game-linked for Unreal. So we ended up building like 7,000 Unreal Engine individually rigged games avatar, which was crazy. But I think this is where it links in quite nicely, because me personally, talking about renting, I would never rent out any of my avatars. Yeah, they're mine. They're my kind of personality, that who I am. This kind of interoperability, I think, is the thing that we have within the blockchain space, which just gives us a different angle to everybody else. You know, I want to be the one who goes into the central land with the same character that I go into with big time that I go into kind of the surrogate model as well.
Exactly. So there are different kinds of NFTs that you really want to use in a simple versus those utility NFTs doesn't really procure identity but crowds plus instantly, right? So actually it's a very good point, because we do have all different those interoperable things which they pop up later. Like if Flem asked me the right question, but yes, I do agree. Yes, it's a good point.
I think this is the interesting bit, that it's all about different people.
Yes,
Not all of them the same, but what in the blockchain does to it gives us the ability to kind of craft our personalities, make our eggs through.
It's also you that Mariano on your side. So as you said, being involved in Web3 for the past years, specifically with NAM, 2008, that's very well clear. Which you did in Latam with a strong ecosystem of players. What do you observe? Because we all know that 2, 3, 4 years ago, ownership of digital asset was really the one thing you could. wish for when you play those blockchain games. Now, what is the status? What do you observe based on the community you have?
First, I think that ownership is great. Ideally, it's great, but it was demonstrated that it's not enough to attract people and retain people into the gaming industry. So if you ask the professionals or the people who works in the gaming industry, and that's what we do every year with the state of the industry report, everyone says that ownership is one of the most important things. But on the other hand, you have 3.5 billion people spending $200 billion on traditional games without ownership. And the Web3 gaming industry is still very little. So it's just to demand. People doesn't care enough about ownership. People want to be rewarded for their time playing a game. And these rewards can be in some kind of money, tokens, NFTs, whatever, points, the loyalty, sense of belonging, just a badge saying, hey, Fab, you are number one, you are on the top of the leaderboard. That's what the gamer wants. And I think that all of us in the Web3 gaming industry, we were missing the point when we were using the blockchain technology. Blockchain technology is great, NFTs are great, tokens are great, but they are not the business model. They should not be the business model. The business model should be having a player enjoying playing a game. And from my experience, we've worked in the last 4 years with over 100 games, including big time. People, there are a little portion of the market that only cares about farming rewards, tokens, or NFTs, and the biggest amount of people wants only a community. They want to play a community, the sense of belonging, having a great time. And if they spend $100 a month, it's okay. So again, ownership ideally is great, but it has to be complemented with a business model that goes with that.
So we're going to go into a very disordered conversation, but I do like it as well. I think it's important to rely on what you just said, and we're going to go back to the questions people have. And I think it's good to ask all of you these kind of questions. Is ownership enough for the success of your product, respectively? And I know you have a portal side and that's what it wants to cover. Is ownership is enough? What is?
I mean, my thing was, does ownership matter? Which probably goes completely against this kind of thinking. But I think I'm with Marina. Basically discussed this, didn't we, before? It was like ownership is part of it, but the fun is why people really come in. And this, I think, is where there has been this kind of, I don't want to say bad name to Web3 gaming, but there's Web3 generally has really good actors, it has the bad actors, and everywhere in between. And I think when we look at some of the Web3 gaming and they're just going for literally as much money as possible and not really having a plan and not really thinking about what is a gaming from that. People will come and they will take the rewards and they will basically use it. But if they're not enjoying it, all you're then ending up doing is getting people that are purely there for the money. You're not building a community. You're then not able to interoperate between different community teams. And this, I think, is one of the strongest things that we have in Web. If we can create this moment where we're two outside it, then we're going to keep building within this space and dragging people in the same way the mobile gaming did 15 years ago. We all invented mobile gaming, you can't get level saying great apps, it's rubbish. But I think if we get this kind of ownership, but the ownership of emotions and time and avatars and everything else, then we should be.
Use like it, what is it outside?
So ownership is communal, right? And whenever we talk about ownership, I think the first thing we think about is do they have this solidarity? So from the decentralized perspective, we have a lot of things that you can own, like land, there's a name, and then there's wearables. So these are kind of NFTs that can ship on. And I agree with this the last speaker mentioned about like your shapes. It do make sense if there's actually abilities like to it. But in what I can see and what I can share from my observation point of view is if you look at the hype of collaboration, particularly one, especially when Facebook changed their name to account, you can see a spike in ownership of NFTs of the canvas of the lot commercial own a lot, and they are willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to this. But the problem is, one see the challenge is most of these owners of the land do not deploy anything, they do not like put in something. But instead, the majority that I've seen or is like observed is they are waiting for the right time to sell. Right? So that's why you see articles say that essentially it's a ghost town. And the sad part is it's partly true because many will own the land, but there's not people even being and those that own the land will want to rent it. And normal players just have to deploy something, normal developers just want to deploy something, but they cannot do it without either purchasing a land or renting. So if I may add, so what the foundation did was brilliant. So I think 2 years ago, the foundation created a new initiative where if you own a name, something like ENSA, something about this VCL.T, if you own a name which is like in today's price is about $100, which is about $39, as compared to a name which is about 5,000 at least. So when you own a name, you are entitled to a profit, not profit like the entire decentralized, but you are not owning that land, you are just entitled to a piece of it to build something, and it's called works. So you have like Genesis, which is a piece of universe where people can own and deploy with neighbors, but for name you have works where it's isolated, and like sandbox. You know, each land is being owned by a name holder. So from there, you see more people buying the name and then utilizing it rather than relying on generosity where people have to pay for hundreds and thousands of dollars.
Okay, so yeah, this is a very interesting topic because I can say I have a similar kind of discussion about 2 years ago as one of the token to 0.9 side events. Back then, the sentiment was quite different, I can tell you, but if you ask me, does the ownership level in Web3 gaming? Yes, of course. If it is not, why do we even bother to talk about Web3, right? That's what sets apart Web3 gaming from Web2 gaming. But is it enough? Of course not, right? Let's face it, at that time had a very interesting conversation because I was advocating you talk about real game before you talk about blockchain, ownership, whatever. If you don't have a real game, there's nothing more to talk about. But then there's another guest was saying, why would you try to compete against all these other great games out there? There are already these great IPs out there. Why would you? Because you will never reach there. They're already great, and then your game will never be there. Why would you want to compete against them? When I said, well, you could be right, but at the same time, let's use as a airline mileage program. You have a great airline mileage program, but you have no place to fly anywhere. Does it make sense? No. Why did you choose even gaming as a Web3 application? Because we believe our players have a very great kind of aligned mentality of only adopters of blockchain. That's why gaming is a great application. So ownership has to be, of course, highlighted, but it has to go with a real gaming. And that's why when we built Big Time, we started building AAA action RPG. And I don't want to discount those early projects who actually made the Web3 games succeed, right? There are early projects in the way, what are people and why is this about, right? But of course, those games are very primitive, very elementary level, not real kind of gaming experience. But it was too much focus on tokens, NFTs, and ownership. But big time, yes, we had a great mission building real action RPG game, AAA quality. All our team members are from Epic, Riot Games, and all these great, game developers. At the same time, the vision from Ari, our founder, who was also founder of this Decentraland, he had a vision, we gotta do the real game and show the benefit of our true ownership, what does the investor bring. So I would say I totally agree with all the panelists are saying, but at the same time, we also have to understand those audio actors who actually play Web3, they could play Web2 games, but why did they choose to play Web3 games and have a different taste? If they were kind of like a different gaming economy they're looking for. So that's the sweet spot we have to find. But at the same time, so actually gives more money to the developers. Actually, those people truly enjoy games, because they're not trying to extract too much. Because those too savvy, Web3 players, they will find every single opportunity to extract from the game. And that is actually not helping in the ecosystem growth. But at the same time, we cannot ignore them because they are the ones advocating this game to the scene. So we actually just have to find the right balance. Don't destroy it, but gotta serve. We cannot please everyone, but at least give them something.
I think we can already persuade now as the word itself. I think it's super interesting. One thing I could add on that is on the social norms, where I know the ecosystem of creators, and maybe there's a larger sense of have a big need for the marketplace, which is very important for this time and often use. But I really agree with you two, obviously. The one thing, a counterexample for auction for ownership, not for creators and for creators, in the ability for creators for the resale route, which is something you don't have in physical world, like how do you track your painting to sell in 500 years. And I think that's so powerful for communities to capitalize on that. And I think it's all based on virtue on ownership. So that would mean just like take everything just said. And going back to the social end, you launched, I was very happy to learn when kind of the head of producer service of that was in Paris and they were announcing the 2025 manifesto. And it was based on the ability to create better content, when said it, attract more creators, valuable creators, also at the same time, as a flywheel, attracting more users. We are nearly the end of the year. What we learn about technically so far?
So if you notice, decentralized do publish manifestos on a daily basis, and these manifestos tend to, I wouldn't say change, because the underlying mission has always been the same. We always depend on feedback from throughout the year, what is the view, and what feedback that receive from the community, and then they will create a new manifesto to update itself as a way of evolving, right? So this is what has been interesting because we want to focus on British economy. But like I said, regardless of the manifesto, the underlying mission and solution is safe to empower the users, to empower creators, and to ensure that the creators, the artists are making the part of tomorrow rather than just creating and then the company take up the shit up, which is not. I think for Decentraland, I think 97% goes to the creator. Talking about creator and artists, Decentraland also created this tool called Creator Hub. So it's fantastic because so if you look back like 3 years ago, many of the creators are unable to reach people because they require like programming knowledge. The SDK is very technical. So what the foundation did is create a creator hub where even non-technical person like me, that myself, we can just download it and then create, upload 3D model and then start drag and drop. In the past we cannot do streaming easily, but now you can. In the past, when you want to upload a picture, take some time, but now you can just drag and drop. So a lot of it has been developed and involved over time in such that And for this particular talk, we can see that community has always been the focus of things to developers. So with the creation of events as well as GitHub, you can see more and more people. And just as I think we had about close to 160,000 downloads since the GitHub was published. So to us, that is the milestone.
Not it is about on all sides. So I'm gonna actually read the press release, so I don't make a mistake on that. But I do think it's a very interesting topic related to what we're going to talk about. Open Wheels will focus on internally developed project tied to its flagship Bitcoin. Explain a little bit why this is the major use for Bitcoin in the credits.
Oh yes, yeah. Actually, this is a great showcase for interoperability because one of the benefits of Web3 game is interoperability, but it's a still a potential. We have not seen the real interoperable assets being used. So when we're building OpenNode, one of the features we had was let's show the world the true benefits of all Web3 features and what was the interoperability. But the difficulty of interoperating is that gaming assets in different games it's not that simple because we have to sync all those. The game is actually very sophisticated in the future. You have to sync all the movements, how this SSP is used in different environments. So that's the reason we were actually onboarding other gaming studios, working closely so we can combine the game development standards as close as possible so we can realize this interoperability. So our internal project is going to be a great showcase because it's going to have these assets actually being used in different games. So it's being developed by first our internal title. It's easier, we can control most environments. But since it's being differently, it's not going to be just straightforward. But we are doing it. That's why for me that issuing like developing another internal developing, it's not only about having another extra title, but we want to actually show how we can actually interoperably use. And then what we actually want to do, deploying and then advocating this use case to other game studios. Because that's what we do. We always start experimenting ourselves, then share that with our other game developers, how this can be done. So that's why this is a great use for us, but not only that, our players, they can benefit not only from continuous play the time game, which we are continuously developing, but they're in different universe. Then you can actually transform your assets into different universe and enjoy those benefit, other countries been talking about.
I think interoperability was the thing that was really exciting 3 years, 4 years ago in the big industry. And it felt like for the past years we are not doing so many things on that part because focusing on other things. The only example I have on my side because of the markets is the Lamborghini example that Anima is doing, making available these digital assets to be used across different games. Do you feel like we should have that's a missing point, or that we should have more projects like yours around and maybe focus on interoperability because that's something blockchain is actually making it possible?
Yes, I think so because you have create avatars or even those we have these the very first way we added this right we have these profile photos where we do the graphics whatever but it can be actually used in different parts. And the great thing is that, like your pets, right? You can have your pets come along or you want to explore different balls. And so I do believe it's a great way of working together. And it's not only the blockchain standards we're trying to standardize it, but even the game itself, if we need to work together to standardize some of the development protocols, it's easier to realize this in a
You talked a little bit about interoperability yourself, but that's the question. What do you feel about these principles for the past years?
Well, do you know, I'm massively on there's gone through the project. We started out only on Unreal, by the way. So Unreal was the only project, or only Unreal games we could upload. And that was simply because we went for the highest quality, which Germany is, that kind of tech, but also because they're building up marketplace. And marketplace, again, is interoperability is not only between, I'm coming to 2 years here, because there's an interoperability across all kind of structures, and then there is an interoperability across users turning into creators, turning into funders, turning into communities. And I think this is the advantage that we have. First of all, December was my first experience. I told you when we sent out on Enterprise. And I think if we all go out, I think I've only been able to run our own games, and no one's going to be able to do anything else but anyone's scared, then we might as well just be in Web 2. We might as well just say, it's my little toy, my little sandbox, and we can't play it. Really what we need to think about is how do we end it? So, what we've done at Beyond, for example, is we've gone out to all the chains and said, right, okay, we want to be able to use the chains. And then we want to be able to say, okay, well, if the games are able to be interfaced, i.e. it's Udi's game and Udi's NFT, how do we then bring those into different? Now, we need approval to do it. We're not just going to take people's games and allow interoperability across the games. That's not the idea. But the more that we end up with everybody working together in the same way, I think we're going to be far more successful as a group. You're saying?
Yeah, I'm a little bit skeptic about doing interoperability for everything. I think that as every technology, it has to have a meaning and it has to be used. In terms of technology, wallets, and everything, I completely agree. But what can we do with a soccer player and shooter? So not every NFT should be able to work on every game. It has to have a meaning. So as long as it has sense and it solved the problem for the player, I'm completely. But I'm not with the policy or the idea of using every technology available just because it's available. It has to have a purpose. I was going to say, one of the things that we were talking about earlier was having one token with lots of games underneath it. That's interoperability in the context. Well, in that context, it's great. And it's that training ability, interoperability. So people don't end up, I'm sure we're all the same. You can start with some NFTs with all because it turn into a game. You can almost want to know if the game doesn't get you can sell them insert token and that would be awesome. Yes.
So then going into the subject of the Surah, which you can explain, it's definitely questions. What does it mean?
Basically, after almost 5 years working with games and with players, supporting them into different Web3 games, we've learned what they wanted, and we've learned that what the point is a loyalty platform and a system that rewards their time playing games. So we built an app we are launching right now, which is basically that a loyalty platform in which each people can have tournaments, can have defined suites. We are adding a different suite with a debit card, with loans, with on and off ramps, the possibility to do quests in-game, quests in social media, get rewarded, get points, gamifying. So you have different leaderboards. Basically what we're doing is rewarding people for their activities on different games. And right now, we are earning our Scrap points, which is a soft currency within the app. But on Q1 2026, they will be able to trade these Scrap points for slot tokens. But The store tokens are not only a utility token for the community. What we're building is with Sura Ventures, which is our venture studio, we are building an ecosystem of different games that shares one single token. So this will be a robust and stable token used in many games that can also be used by the community for playing these games. It will be a real utility token. So it will be a 360 vision uniting all the parts of the gaming industry.
Wow, does it make sense to address these products to Latam specifically? Why these consumers? Based on where you are, obviously, but also based on the population and the mindset, the consumer behavior about that. Why does it make sense for this specific niche?
I think that in LATAM we have a special set of skills based on where we were. Everything was always difficult for us, consistent with markets, to grades, to wherever. So the people in LATAM has a special mindset that is really nice all over the world. And that's bring the first bring to adoption. So that's why we have a lot of people use crypto. This is one of the reasons we want crypto holders. And on the other side, there is also a very large gaming community. We have like 350 million people playing games, which is the second largest Web3 gaming economy at the Southeast Asia because of Dutch operations. And the combination of everything that makes South America a great region, both for users and for creators. That's why there are companies like Big Data, some folks that were creating something very good.
Coming back to you, Andy, topic is ownership. We're going to skip a little bit the gamers part. Let's try to focus on maybe developers, owners of nodes that trying to go into this decentralized infrastructure, which is something you've done. I got excited by blockchain 3 years ago for gamer, player, still is. But for the past 1-2 years, it's mainly also, it's tied up also with the thing you can do as an infrastructure using blockchain for the sake of the industry, which is something you do. For the game developers who are struggling influence, and I would like you to talk about that with the element why I think to try to solve for the game developers, whatever you want to do.
Yes, but so it was really interesting. The first problem we were trying to solve was pricing. So we were like, full games need to be run in web browser. You know, our opinion, I'm sure you guys will exclude on this. You know, cloud gaming is the future. Yeah, instant access games, instant play for anybody, any device whatsoever. You know, that should be at least the whole world can get access, and that's what I think something like 50% of the market have high-end PCs, you know, or game consoles. The other 50% are doing on mobile. So we want to be able to give, you know, AAA games to people on the mobile. I think the market though has changed a little bit over the last 3-6 months for us, where we've actually ended up going out to Web2 companies, and instead of them saying, okay, I want to run my full, because there are a lot of AAA games, so we were talking to big names in the marketplace, and they didn't necessarily want to run their full game, but what they want to do is be able to give instant access. So it's this user acquisition, and there's a really good graph which I can send you. I will, by the way. And I'm sure you've seen it. And it's Steam games. And it's like 96% of Steam games, or 96% of the money goes to current Steam games. Now, what that means is user-generated content, smaller, brilliant studios. We talked about this. You know, great games that just can't get any viewing. They just die. You know, By what we're doing is enabling people to have an advert, which basically you can see an advert, you're playing a mini game, you click on that game, there's no download, you don't need any stack of PC, and instantly then you're playing the game. And we just got, tons of demand from that. I mean, to the point where we're sort of trying to work out how on earth we handle the demand piece, which is great, a nice position to be in. But I think, again, we're looking at this from a holistic perspective, so how do we help our partners, but we're also looking at it from we think we tapped into something which hopefully is a new generation of, and I'm going to click back to the other thing we spoke about earlier, which is user-generated content, going on Epic, downloading the marketplace, building yourself an avatar, put the avatar in, putting the Fortnite game mechanics on it, sending that on a URL to your friends on 5 different devices, and it's all playing the same Fortnite game. That's where we sort of see the future.
Love it. Perfect. I think we went into all of the kind of the topics I wanted to talk about. Do you feel like as an extended thing we would like to add anything that just maybe for from my side? We're good?
I was just going to say thank you very much. This has been, because I was coming for a cloud gaming talk, and then I moved to this, I was like, oh my god, right, okay. We're going to talk about the same thing, but I think it's really interesting to see how everybody is on the same path. And I think BGA is leading it, and hopefully getting everybody to knuckle down and kind of tap into this ownership.
Yeah, I really like the fact that we could have to talk about how ownership is wonderful, like what you said 2 years ago. Definitely the kind of topic. And I really like the fact that you see the opportunity to say yes to that, which is very important as well. Thank you very much.
I'm just happy that we are all on the same page and they use 6.4 where it has to be.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.